I sat at my desk and whispered, "Another day of pretending." Even though no one was listening, Mark leaned over the divider and said, "You alive over there?" "Barely," I said. He laughed. "That's the spirit." I nodded because nodding was safer than talking. Talking made people notice you. I didn't want that. I typed numbers, answered emails, and kept my head down. That was my job. That was my life. Then Elena Blackwood walked in. The room changed when she entered. Chairs straightened. Voices dropped. People stopped breathing. I didn't look up, but I felt her. I always did. In my head, I said, "Here comes the Queen of Ice. $1 billion, zero soul." I smiled at my screen. Mark whispered, "Don't look." "At her, I'm not," I muttered. In my mind, I kept going. Perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect control. She probably schedules emotions like meetings. I hated myself for thinking it. But it was the only place I felt brave. Alina stopped near our row. Her heels clicked once. I imagined her judging everyone's worth in silence. Go ahead, I thought. Decide who eats and who starves today. Meeting in 5. She said. Her voice was calm, sharp, clean. It cut through me anyway. Mark whispered, "She scares the hell out of me." "She should," I said. He smirked. "You always sound so calm." I didn't tell him that calm was just fear that learned how to sit still in the conference room. I took my usual seat near the end, invisible, safe. Alina stood at the head. Screens lit up behind her, she said. "We missed targets last quarter." No one spoke. I thought, "Because you squeeze people until they break," she continued. "I want accountability." Thought you want obedience. She looked around slowly, I thought. Smile more. It might help hide the emptiness. My chest felt tight, but my mind wouldn't stop. I needed the thoughts. They kept me from screaming. Thomas cleared his throat. "We can adjust projections." Alina nodded. "We will." I thought, "God, you love control." Then it happened. I thought, someone should tell you you're not a god. Alina stopped speaking. Her eyes locked onto mine. The room went silent. I froze. She held my gaze, not angry, not curious, focused. My heart slammed. "Against my ribs?" Mark whispered. "Why is she looking at you?" Swallowed. Alina tilted her head slightly, like she was listening to something only she could hear. My mind screamed, "No, no, no," she said. "Any thoughts?" A few people laughed nervously. I forced a smile and said, "No, ma'am." She didn't look away. For a second, I was sure she knew. Every ugly joke, every bitter thought, every insult I never dared to say out loud. Then she turned back to the screen. The meeting ended soon after. Chairs scraped. People exhaled. Mark grabbed my arm. "What was that?" "Nothing," I said too fast. He frowned. "She never does that." I laughed. "Guess I'm special." But inside, the jokes were gone. Something cold had replaced them. As I walked back to my desk, I told myself I was imagining things, but my hands were shaking. And for the first time, my thoughts didn't feel safe anymore.
I woke up still seeing her eyes. "At work?" Mark asked. "You look like hell." "Didn't sleep." "I slept," I said. "I just didn't rest." He laughed. "Rough meeting yesterday." "Something like that." I sat down, logged in, and waited. That was the worst part. Waiting to be noticed. "Good morning," Elena said from behind me. I flinched. I turned. "Good morning, ma'am." She nodded once. "Send me the revised figures by noon." "Yes," I said. She didn't move right away. Her eyes stayed on me. Unblinking. I thought, does she enjoy this? She walked away. Mark whispered, "She never talks to us directly." "She does now," I said. "Be careful," he said. "People disappear like that." I tried to laugh. "It's just work." But my chest was tight all morning. At 10, Elena called from across the floor. "You. Come here." Everyone looked at me. I stood. "Yes." She pointed at the screen. "Explain this." I explained. My voice sounded steady, But my head was loud. She's watching you breathe. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Good." Just that. After she left, Mark said, "She said your name twice." "That doesn't mean anything," I said. "It does in this place." At lunch, I pushed food around my plate. Mark said, "You're thinking too much." "I can't stop," I said. "Then stop looking at her." "I don't," I said. But I did. Every time she passed, my eyes followed without permission. In my head, I went back to jokes. Relax. She's just another tyrant in heels. At 3, she called me into the elevator. Just us. The doors closed. The silence pressed in. I thought, say something. Anything. I thought, smile, Elena. You look like a statue. She stared ahead. The elevator moved. My heart pounded. I thought, does she even blink? She said, "You're tense." I swallowed. Long day. I thought, you enjoy making people small. She said, people usually hide it better. My mouth went dry. I thought, stop thinking. Stop thinking. The elevator slowed. I thought, she doesn't care who she crushes. She said, "You're wrong." I froze. I laughed too loudly. "Sorry." She turned her head and looked at me. "You said I don't care who I crush," she said. The elevator doors opened. I couldn't move. "That's what you were thinking," she added. My ears rang. I stepped out on shaking legs. She walked past me and said, "Careful. Thoughts have weight." I stood there while the doors closed behind her. Later, in the bathroom, I stared at myself. I said, "You're tired. That's all." But my reflection didn't believe me. Back at my desk, Mark asked, "What happened in the elevator?" "Nothing," I said. "You're pale." "I'm fine." He lowered his voice. "Listen. Stay invisible. That's how you survive here." I nodded. But survival didn't feel possible anymore. All afternoon, Elena watched me. Not openly. Quietly. Like she knew when I was thinking. I stopped joking in my head. The silence was worse. When work ended, she walked past my desk and said, "Good night." "Good night," I replied. Her eyes met mine. They didn't blink. As she left, I finally understood something I couldn't joke away. She wasn't just rich. She wasn't just powerful. She was paying attention. And that scared me more than anything. Elena's assistant said, "She wants to see you." "No." I stood slowly. Mark whispered, "What did you do?" "Nothing," I said. Elena's office felt colder than the rest of the floor. She didn't ask me to sit. She said, "Close the door." I did. She walked to the window and said, "You think I'm empty?" My stomach dropped. "I don't know what you mean," I said. She turned. "You think I schedule emotions." My mouth went dry. "I never said that," I replied. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "You didn't have to." I shook my head. "I would never disrespect you." "You call me a tyrant," she said calmly. "That's not true," I said. "You think I enjoy control," she added. I laughed weakly. "This is ridiculous." She stepped closer. "You think silence makes you invisible." I couldn't breathe. "I don't think those things," I said. She studied me. "Lying is louder than truth." I swallowed. "Are you accusing me of something?" She paused. "I'm observing." I forced myself to speak. "I respect my job." She nodded. "Respect is quieter." I left her office shaking. At my desk, Mark avoided my eyes. An hour later, HR emailed me. "Meeting at 4, Julia wrote. In the conference room, Julia said, "This is informal." Mark sat beside her. Julia asked, "Have you expressed hostile opinions about leadership?" "No," I said. Mark cleared his throat. "He vents sometimes." I stared at him. "About stress." Julia said, "Mark." He looked down. He called Elena controlling. "That's not true," I said. "He joked," Mark said quickly. Julia typed. Do you deny this? Yes, I said. Mark said. He said worse in private. I felt my chest burn. Why are you doing this? Julia raised her hand. Focus, I said. Those were thoughts, not words. Julia froze. Thoughts. I realized my mistake too late. Mark said, see. Julia leaned back. We'll review this. Afterward, Mark said quietly, I'm sorry. You sold me, I said. You scared me, he replied. At my desk, whispers followed me. I thought, they hear everything now. That evening, Elena stopped by. She said, you should have respected silence. She walked away. I sat there, empty. My thoughts were no longer mine. I didn't go to work the next morning. The email said, suspended pending investigation. I read it once. Then again. Then again. Mark texted, rough break. I stared at the screen and typed, you knew. He didn't reply. When I walked into the office later to collect my things, the place felt smaller. Conversations stopped when they saw me. Julia stood near the front desk and said quietly, just take what you need. Am I fired? I asked. She hesitated. Not yet. Mark walked past wearing a new suit. Someone clapped his shoulder. Congrats, another voice said. I stepped in front of him. Enjoying the promotion? He smiled without meeting my eyes. It's not like that. You sold me, I said. I protected myself, he replied. You lied. You thought things, he said. That's on you. My hands curled into fists. I trusted you. He shrugged. This place eats trust. Across the floor, Elena stood near the glass wall. She didn't speak. She watched. I waited for her to say something. She didn't. At my desk, I packed my notebook and mug. People pretended not to see me. Someone whispered, he did it to himself. I left without saying goodbye. At home, my sister Lena opened the door and frowned. You look broken. I'm fine, I said. She crossed her arms. You always say that when you're not. I dropped my bag. They suspended me. For what? For thinking wrong, I said. She guided me to the couch. Sit. They looked at me like I was dangerous, I said. Lena said, are you? I'm tired, I said. She sat in front of me. You used to argue. You used to fight back. I learned to stay quiet, I said. She shook her head. You learned to disappear. My phone buzzed. Another email. I didn't open it. Lena said, read it. It won't help. It might, she said. I opened it. Review ongoing. She watched my face. What aren't you saying? They already decided, I said. Who told you that? No one, I said. I can feel it. She took my hand. You're not replaceable. I was replaced yesterday, I said. She said, that job isn't your life. It was all I had, I said. She leaned closer. You still have yourself. I laughed bitterly. I don't recognize him. That night, my phone buzzed again. Subject line, next steps. I opened it slowly. Potential termination, it read. I stared at the words until they blurred. Lena said softly, I'm here. I nodded, but I felt hollow. At that moment, I understood something that scared me more than losing my job. I had spent years shrinking so no one would notice me. And now that they were done with me, there was nothing left to protect. I wasn't angry yet. I was erased. And that terrified me. I didn't reply to the termination email. Lena asked, are you going to fight it? I'm done begging, I said. She studied me. That sounds new. It feels new, I said. I spent the morning replaying everything. Every meeting. Every look. Every silence. I said out loud. She watched before she spoke. Lena asked, who? Elena, I said. She reads people, not minds. Lena nodded slowly. So what now? I stop hiding, I said. I opened my old contacts and stared at one name. Ryan. Lena said, "Who's that?" "Someone who disappeared," I said. I messaged him, "You don't know me. I worked under her." He replied an hour later, "I know exactly who you are. We met at a quiet cafe." Ryan said, "You look how I did." "Tired?" I asked. "Cornered," he said. I leaned forward. "What happened to you?" He laughed softly. "Silence happened." I said, "She broke you." "No," he said. "I broke myself trying to stay invisible." "What did she do?" I asked. "She waited," he said. "She let me doubt myself." I whispered, "She did that to me." Ryan nodded. "She pushes, then watches." "Why?" I asked. "To see who folds," he said. I clenched my jaw. "And if you don't?" "She moves closer," he said. I said, "I thought she could hear me." Ryan smiled sadly. "She hears patterns." That stayed with me. At home, I opened a notebook. Lena said, "What's that?" "Proof," I said. I wrote dates, times, words. I said, "She never accused me directly." Lena said, "Because she didn't need to." I said, "Mark spoke for her." Lena's voice hardened. "Mark chose himself." "I would have too," I said. She shook her head. "No. You chose quiet." That hurt because it was true. That night, I stood in the mirror and said, "Stop joking." The voice in my head went silent. The next day, I returned to the building to submit documents. Security said, "You're not cleared." "I'm allowed here," I said. He checked. 10 minutes. Inside, Elena stood near the glass wall again. She didn't look surprised. She said, "You came back." "I had paperwork," I said. She watched me. "You seem calmer." "I stopped pretending," I replied. Her eyes narrowed slightly. I thought, she's measuring. I didn't joke. I didn't insult. I listened. She said, "People shrink when they're afraid." I did, I said. "And now?" she asked. "I'm paying attention," I said. She smiled faintly. "That's dangerous." "For you or me?" I asked. She didn't answer. As I walked away, my hands were steady. Outside, I called Ryan. "She noticed," I said. He replied, "Good." I said, "I'm done hiding." "Then write everything," he said. "I am," I replied. That night, I added one final line to my notebook. "I'm not small anymore." And for the first time, I believed it. I returned to work with a badge that said, "Probation." The guard said, "You've got eyes on you." "I know," I said. "Mark avoided me all morning." I said, "Relax." He forced a smile. "I am." "You're sweating," I said. He laughed too loudly. "Just busy." Elena didn't call me in. That was new. She passed my desk and said, "Still here?" "For now," I replied. She nodded like she'd already moved on. In meetings, she didn't look at me. I thought, she thinks I broke. Victor sat near the end of the table, quiet as ever. Elena said, "Thomas explained the delay." Thomas said, "We needed approval." Elena said, "You should have anticipated that." Thomas flushed. I followed protocol. Elena smiled thinly. "Protocol is an excuse." The room went stiff. I said calmly, "The timeline was approved last quarter." Elena turned. "Was it?" "Yes," I said. "You signed it." Victor looked up. Elena paused. "We'll discuss this later." Thomas exhaled. Afterward, Victor stopped me. "You remember details." "I write things down," I said. He nodded. "Good habit." Mark cornered me near the printer. He said, "Why are you talking?" "I always talked," I said. "No," he said. "You survived by not talking." "I changed," I replied. "You're going to get crushed," he said. I smiled. "You already tried." His face tightened. Elena called an open-floor briefing. She said, "Mistakes cost money." Thomas shifted beside me. She said, "Some people don't deserve responsibility." Thomas said, "That's unfair." Elena laughed. "Fairness is for children." I felt the room turn. I said, "Public blame doesn't fix private issues." She stared at me. Victor watched closely. Elena said, "You're bold today." "I'm accurate," I said. She raised her voice. Thomas delayed us. Victor said quietly, "The approval chain is documented." Elena's smile cracked. She said, "Enough." Silence followed. After the meeting, Thomas whispered, "Thank you." I said, "Just facts." Elena passed me again. She said, "Careful." I replied, "Always." My hands weren't shaking. At lunch, Mark said, "You think you're winning?" "I'm not playing," I said. Victor sat across from me. "You don't react." "I observe," I said. "That unsettles people," he said. "Good," I replied. Later, Elena snapped at an assistant. She said, "Do you need instructions to breathe?" The floor went silent. I saw it then. Arrogance isn't power. It's exposure. Elena noticed me watching. She said, "Say it." "I don't need to," I said. Victor stood. "We should revisit leadership conduct." Elena stiffened. That was the crack. At my desk, I wrote everything down. Not to attack. To remember. Mark walked by and said, "She'll destroy you." I looked up. "Only if I let her." He said nothing. As the day ended, Elena stood by the glass again. She didn't look confident. She looked annoyed. I packed slowly. I thought, karma doesn't rush. It waits. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of waiting. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was choosing. I knew something had broken when Mark started sweating again. He leaned close and said, "Did you hear?" "Hear what?" I asked. "HR's asking questions." "They always do," I said. He swallowed hard. "Not like this." At 10, Julia emailed, "Please come by." In her office, she said, "We have multiple complaints." "About me?" I asked. "About patterns," she replied. Mark blurted, "He hates Elena." I turned to him. "You said that." Julia looked at him. "Did you?" Mark said, "I misunderstood." "You lied," I said. He snapped, "You forced me." Julia raised her hand. "Enough." She faced me. "Did you leak anything?" "No," I said. She watched my face, then nodded slowly. By noon, whispers moved faster than emails. Someone said, "Messages surfaced." Another said, "Meeting logs too." I stayed quiet. Elena called me in. She didn't sit. She said, "You think you're clever." "I think you're nervous," I replied. Her eyes sharpened. "You set this up." "I wrote things down," I said. She stepped closer. "You wanted this." "I wanted silence," I said. She laughed, then stopped. "You're enjoying it." "No," I said. "I'm breathing." She circled me. Mark confessed. "He always does," I said. Her jaw tightened. "You poisoned him." "You used him," I replied. She said, "I can end you." "You already tried," I said. She paused. For the first time, she hesitated. I said, "You trained people to betray." She whispered, "You're not afraid." "I was," I said. "Not anymore." She searched my face. "What do you want?" I said nothing. Silence stretched between us. Her voice dropped. "Say something." I didn't. She stepped back like she'd misjudged distance. Later, Victor spoke at the board table. He said, "The record speaks clearly." Elena said, "This is an attack." Victor replied, "It's documentation." Mark broke down. I was pressured. No one defended him. Julia said, "We recommend review." Elena stared at me across the room. I met her gaze without blinking. She looked smaller than before. The vote happened quietly. Elena stood. "This isn't over." Victor said, "It is for now." As people left, Elena stopped beside me. She said, "You feel powerful?" "No," I said. "I feel done." She nodded once and walked away. I sat alone after everyone left. Relief moved through me slowly. There was no victory in it. No revenge either. Just the weight finally lifting. For the first time in months, I could breathe without fear. Elena asked for me by name. Julia said, "She's stepping down." "For how long?" I asked. "Indefinitely," she replied. I nodded. "She wants to talk." Julia hesitated. "You don't have to." "I know," I said. Elena waited in the empty conference room. She said, "You came." "I wanted to finish this," I replied. She gestured to a chair. "Sit." I stayed standing. "Say what you need." She studied me. "You changed." "I had to," I said. She exhaled slowly. I sensed weakness. I didn't interrupt. She said, "You hid behind silence." "I was afraid," I said. She nodded. "Fear is loud to me." "You used it," I said. "Yes," she admitted. "I exploited it." I clenched my jaw. "Why?" "Because power tests itself," she said. I laughed once. "On people." "On patterns," she replied. I said, "You broke people." "I exposed them," she said. "That's not the same," I replied. She tilted her head. "You hated me." "Yes," I said. "Because I hated who I became around you." Her eyes softened. "Small." "Yes," I said. "Invisible." She said, "You survived." "Barely," I replied. She leaned back. "You could ruin me." "I won't," I said. "Why not?" she asked. "Because I don't need to," I replied. She watched me closely. "That's growth." "I didn't come for praise," I said. She nodded. "You came for closure." "Yes," I said. She said, "I never apologized." "I don't want one," I replied. She paused. "Neither do I." Silence filled the room. She said, "I underestimated you." "I underestimated myself," I replied. She stood. "You'll do well." "I already am," I said. She gave a small smile. "Then we're done." I turned toward the door. She said, "You were never weak." I stopped. "I was scared." She replied, "That's different." I opened the door. She said, "Don't disappear again." "I won't," I said. Outside, the building felt lighter. Victor passed me and said, "Good choice." "I didn't choose power," I said. He smiled. "You chose yourself." Lena called. "Is it over?" "Yes," I said. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Clean," I replied. I walked past my old desk. No one looked away. No one whispered. I didn't need them to. As I stepped into the sunlight, I felt something settle. Not anger. Not pride. Dignity. I hadn't won by fighting. I'd won by walking away. And that was enough.